Hi everyone, in this video we will be covering the rest of the elements of the contract. In the last video we had already covered two essential elements of a valid contract, that is free consent and competence of parties. In this video we will be covering lawful consideration, lawful objective and contracts that are not exclusively barred by law. Let's look at the first element, that is of lawful consideration. Consideration is what one party gives to the other party at the promise of something in return. According to section 23, a consideration must be of some value and it must be lawful. Let's break down the definition of a valid lawful consideration. According to the definition, firstly, the act or abstinence that a person is doing in order to count it as consideration must be done at the desire of the promisor. Secondly, it should be done either by the promisee or any other person. And lastly, the act or abstinence may already be executed or may be in the process of being executed or may still be executory. One important thing to note here is that consideration need not be equal in value or need not be adequate. However, it must have some value in the eyes of law and most importantly, it must cause some incremental increase to the person for whom the consideration is being given to. Let's look at some of the examples. Selling a property in exchange for money is valid consideration and the contract is valid. However, if the consideration involves an illegal act, such as smuggling of goods or committing a crime, then such a consideration will not be valid and the contract will be void. In the very famous case of Esso Petroleum, one coin was given to any person who purchased 4 gallons of petrol. The court had held that this is a valid consideration for a person to enter into a contract of purchase of petrol, and this was not held to be a gift. Let's look at one of the fact situations. A owed a sum of money as a promissory note to his father. He kept complaining of unequal treatment in the division of property till his father told him that if he stopped complaining, he would waive A's debt. A stopped complaining and then refused to repay the debt when the father asked him to do so. It was held that A stopping to complain did not amount to a valid consideration. Let's look at one of the important components usually found in questions of consideration, that is of a promissory note. A promissory note is a debt instrument by which a person promises to another person or a party to offer some amount of money at either a future date or on demand. And this promise has to be in writing and this written document is called a promissory note. Whenever you are faced with doubt with respect to whether this is a valid consideration or not, usually don't try and overanalyze the concept of consideration. Rather, look at the specific parameters mentioned in the question and most importantly, focus on the concept of incremental change. It is also important to note what will not be a valid consideration. So anything which is not done at the desire of the promisor but rather done voluntarily will not be a valid consideration. Secondly, anything done in discharge of a duty or in discharge of something that already binds the person rather than the contract will not be a valid consideration. Further, an act done in discharge of a pre-existing duty to another party or to society in general will also not be a valid consideration for a specific contract. Another important component of consideration is the doctrine of privity. The doctrine of privity states that the contract exists between two parties and thus any other party cannot demand performance of the specific contract because the contract confers rights and obligations only between the parties to the contract and not to any other third person or a party. Let's look at an illustration for the doctrine of privity. A borrowed Rs 40,000 by executing a mortgage in favor of B. Later, A sold the property to C for Rs 44,000 and allowed C to retain Rs 40,000 of the price in order to redeem the mortgage. B, the mortgagee, sued C for the recovery of mortgage. It was held that B could not succeed because B was not a party to the contract between A and C. Another important component here is that of promissory estoppel. In the usual routine course of businesses, the court recognizes promises made by both the parties to each other. However, in certain situations, unilateral promises are also recognized. In such a situation, the promisee is not bound to act, but if the promisee carries out an act desired by the promisor, the promisee can later hold the promisor to his end of the promise. This is because the promisor is now estopped from claiming that there is no promise. This is called the doctrine of promissory estoppel. Let's look at an illustration for the doctrine of promissory estoppel. The commissioners of Howrah municipality invited subscriptions from the general public for the construction of a town hall. A subscribed to the fund for ₹100. Once sufficient subscriptions were made, and relying upon the faith of the promised subscriptions, the municipality entered into a contract for the construction of the town hall. A then refused to pay the amount of ₹100. It was held that A was bound to pay. The promise was, in consideration of your agreeing to enter into a contract to erect the town hall, I undertake to supply the specified money for it. It is important to note that a unilateral promise will be revocable any time before the promisee has taken any action in the faith that promise will be honored, but no time after. This concludes our discussion on lawful consideration. Now, let's discuss another important element of a valid contract, that is a lawful object. The object or purpose of the contract must be lawful. If the contract has an illegal object or involves illegal activities, then it will not be a lawful object and the contract will be void. Section 23 of the Indian Contract Act defines what consideration and object are lawful or not. Let's look at the definition of a lawful consideration and break it down into components. The consideration or object of an agreement is lawful unless it is forbidden by law or is of such a nature that if permitted would defeat the provisions of any law, or is fraudulent, or involves or implies an injury to the person or property of another, or the court regards it as immoral or opposed to public policy. An illegal contract is totally unenforceable. The maxim ex turpi causa non oritur actio means that out of a base or bad cause, no action can arise. The principle of public policy is ex dolo malo non oritur actio. That means that the state cannot come to aid of a person who does engage into an immoral or illegal object or contract. For example, a contract to sell a property is lawful, whereas a contract to sell banned drugs is unlawful. Secondly, a contract which asks the other person to engage into fraud or crime will be unlawful. Let's look at agreements opposed to public policy. Agreements that are entered into that could be injurious to the public or to the public good are void as being opposed to public policy. Some examples of agreements opposed to public policy could be, for example, entering into an alien enemy at the time when sanctions are on. For example, if there is a Cold War or if there is some sort of a war between India and China, and if a person from India enters into a contract of trade with a Chinese person, that will be a contract opposed to public policy of the country at the point of time that the contract is entered into. Another example is sale of public office. For example, an agreement to enter into a contract with a public servant to pay money to the public servant to make him retire from the office so that the promiser could become the public servant. Such an agreement is essentially making someone buy public office, and thus it is opposed to public policy and is void. Another example is agreement that tend to misuse the legal process or harm the legal settled process of the country. For example, paying money to people to appear as witness in civil suit and claim a false testimony. Such an agreement is opposed to public policy and will therefore be void. Another example is of maintenance. A person who has no reason to be a part of the suit but supports the suit for her personal gain will be guilty of maintenance, and such a contract would be void for being opposed to public policy. This is not per se wrong or opposed to public policy. However, it will be opposed to public policy if the litigation is unrighteous or for an unlawful purpose, such as encouraging gambling or abetting someone to do something. Another example of a contract that is opposed to public policy could be a contract of champerty, where the person demands certain share in the final proceeds of the suit where the property is in dispute, wherein the person has no legitimate interest in being party to the suit. A lot of times, certain unconscionable agreements are also opposed to public policy and are therefore void. These could be agreements which do not fall under the category of undue influence or coercion, as we discussed in the previous video, but are very unconscionable in the society. For example, making a poor person enter into a contract solely because they are too poor to object to it. Such a contract would be unconscionable and would therefore be void. Finally, let's discuss certain expressly void agreements in the Indian Contract Act from sections 24 to 30. Some agreements are declared void by law and are therefore unenforceable in a court of law. One of such agreements is an agreement for unlawful consideration or object, as already discussed in the previous section. An example of such an agreement is an agreement to enter into an immoral object. Let's look at an illustration of an immoral object. A promises to pay B to engage in fraudulent activities to mislead investors into buying shares of a failing company. Here, the object of the contract, that is deceiving investors, is immoral and against public policy, making the agreement void. Another example of agreements that are expressly held to be void is an agreement without consideration. This could be giving a gift or promising to give a gift without any documentation or written record. Let's look at an illustration of such a situation. Suppose A verbally promises to give his friend B $10,000 as a gift purely out of goodwill and friendship, but does not put this promise in writing or make it official in any way. There is no consideration exchanged. B does nothing in return for this promise. In this case, the promise is invalid and unenforceable under Section 25 because there is no consideration involved and the agreement does not fall under any valid exception to the rule requiring consideration. Another example of such an agreement is an agreement in restraint of marriage. Any agreement which prevents someone from marrying or marrying a certain way is void. So every agreement in restraint of marriage of a person who is not a minor will be void. Such a restraint could either be partial or whole. For example, a contract that says a person must not marry until he is of the age of 30 is also void. Further, agreements in restraint of trade are also void as per Section 27. Such a restraint must be unreasonable. For example, asking someone to not put up a shop in a specific region would be a void contract. Additionally, agreements restraining legal process will be void. For example, an agreement requiring the person to not be able to sue later on will be a void contract. Further, agreements which are ambiguous and uncertain are also void. For example, an agreement to sell products at an indefinite point of time or at an uncertain price will be a void agreement. Suppose A promises to sell B a large quantity of rice but does not mention what quantity, what price or at what period of time. Such a contract or agreement would be a void one. Lastly, according to Section 30, wagering agreements are also void. Such agreements are based purely on betting or gambling or methods of chance, and such agreements are therefore held to be void. For example, a bet between friends on a cricket match is not a valid contract and it is a void agreement. There are certain exceptions to some of these elements, and one of these exceptions is sale of goodwill of a company. For example, an agreement by a person to sell the goodwill of his business requiring the seller to not operate within those limits for as long as the buyer is operating within those limits is a valid contract provided these restrictions are not unreasonable. Let's look at an illustration of sale of goodwill of a business. A, an inventor and manufacturer of guns and ammunition, made a sale of goodwill and agreed with the buyer A, not to practice the same trade for 25 years and B, not to engage in any business competing or liable to compete in any way with the business for the time being carried on by the buyer. The first part of the agreement was held to be valid, but the second part was considered to be unreasonable and therefore void. Partnership Act. Partnership Acts provide exception to the general rule that agreements in restraint of trade are void. For example, Section 11 enables partners of the firm to enter into contracts that neither of the partners will engage in any other business except the business of the firm for the duration of the existence of the firm. Such a contract, even though in restraint of trade of the individual partners and even though in restraint of liberty of the individual partners, will not be void because it is an exception to the rule. There are certain judicially recognized exceptions to the rule of restraint of trade. For example, an employee committing to his employer to not engage in any other service or work for the duration of the employment is a valid contract and is not void. However, an agreement to restrain a servant from not competing with the employer after the termination of the employment contract will be a void contract. One thing important to note here is that though a wagering agreement is void, it is not unenforceable by law. So, a lot of times parties enter into transactions collateral to the wagering agreement. So, even though the wagering agreement is held to be void, the transactions entered into collateral to the agreement are not void and are valid and enforceable. For example, A lends money to B to pay off his gambling debt. Even though the object of gambling is unlawful, it is not unenforceable, and therefore A can recover money from B. So it is important to note that there is a difference between illegal contracts and void contracts. An illegal transaction is unlawful and therefore forbidden by law, whereas a void transaction is a valid transaction but it is unenforceable in a court of law. All illegal transactions are void transactions. However, not all void transactions are illegal or unlawful transactions. That is it for the main elements of the contract.